The message arrived through Ronaldo's official website, contact form, on a Tuesday evening, buried among hundreds of other fan letters, sponsorship proposals, and interview requests that his management team sorted through daily. What made this particular message different wasn't its length or eloquence, but the quiet desperation that seemed to emanate from every carefully chosen word. It had been written by 16-year-old Carlos Mendez from a small town outside Seville, and it told a story that would change how Ronaldo understood the power of hope in the face of inevitable loss. Dear Mr. Ronaldo, the message began, I know you probably receive thousands of letters and will probably never read this one, but I have to try because my grandmother is dying and meeting you is the only thing she has asked for. My name is Carlos and I live with my grandmother Esperanza in Carmona. She raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 7, and she has been the most important person in my life. 3 months ago, doctors told us that she has pancreatic cancer and that she has maybe 6 weeks left to live. That was 12 weeks ago, and I think she's staying alive through pure willpower because she's too stubborn to leave me alone in the world. Carlos went on to explain that his grandmother had been a football fan her entire life, following Real Madrid through decades of victories and defeats, with a passion that never wavered despite the hardships of her own life. She had worked as a seamstress for over 50 years, saving every penny she could to provide for Carlos and to buy the small television that allowed them to watch matches together in their modest apartment. She always said that watching Ronaldo play was like watching poetry in motion, Carlos wrote, and that even when everything else in life was difficult, football reminded her that beautiful things were still possible in the world. When the doctors told us about the cancer, the first thing she said wasn't about being scared or sad. She said, I wish I could meet that Ronaldo boy and tell him how much joy he's brought to an old woman's life. The letter went on to describe Esperanza's deteriorating condition, her refusal to go to the hospital despite increasing pain, and her insistence on watching every Real Madrid match from her bed, even when she was too weak to sit up. Carlos explained that he had tried to contact the club through official channels, had written to sports journalists, and had even attempted to organize a social media campaign to get Ronaldo's attention, but nothing had worked. I know this is probably impossible, the letter concluded, and I know you must have many more important things to do than visit a dying grandmother in a small town. But she doesn't have much time left, and if there's any chance you could spare even 5 minutes to meet her, it would mean everything to both of us. She always says that she's not afraid of dying, but she is afraid of leaving me alone. I think meeting you would give her the peace she needs to let go when the time comes. Ronaldo's assistant, Maria Santos, was the first person to read Carlos's letter, and she was immediately moved by its sincerity and the love that Carlos clearly felt for his grandmother. Maria had worked with Ronaldo for over 5 years and had handled thousands of similar requests. But something about this particular letter convinced her that her boss needed to see it immediately. She called Ronaldo at home that evening, reading the letter aloud over the phone and explaining why she felt it deserved his personal attention. Maria, Ronaldo said without hesitation after hearing the letter, get me Carlos's contact information. I want to call him tonight, and I want to arrange to visit his grandmother as soon as possible. Clear my schedule for tomorrow if necessary. The phone call that followed was one of the most emotional conversations Carlos had ever experienced. Ronaldo spoke to him in Spanish with a warmth and sincerity that made it clear he wasn't making a polite gesture, but was genuinely moved by Esperanza's situation. Carlos, Ronaldo said, I want you to know that visiting your grandmother isn't an inconvenience or a favor. It's an honor. Anyone who has spent their life loving football and finding joy in watching our team deserves to have that love acknowledged, especially someone who has sacrificed so much to raise a grandson like you. They arranged for Ronaldo to visit the following afternoon, but he insisted that the visit remain completely private, with no media coverage or public attention that might turn Esperanza's final weeks into a spectacle. Carlos spent that night cleaning their small apartment, arranging Esperanza's medications so they wouldn't be visible, and trying to prepare his grandmother for a visit that she initially refused to believe was really happening. "Mijo," she said weakly from her bed, using the affectionate Spanish term for "my child," "you don't need to make up stories to make me feel better. I know Ronaldo isn't really coming to see an old woman like me." But when Ronaldo arrived at their apartment the next afternoon, dressed casually and carrying a bouquet of flowers along with a Real Madrid jersey signed by the entire team, Esperanza's disbelief transformed into overwhelming joy. She tried to sit up in bed to greet him properly, but Ronaldo immediately insisted that she remain comfortable, pulling a chair close to her bedside and settling in as if he had all the time in the world. "Esperanza," he said gently, taking her frail hand in his, "Carlos tells me that you've been a Real Madrid fan for most of your life. I want to hear about your favorite matches, your favorite players, and what football has meant to you over all these years." What followed was a conversation that lasted nearly 3 hours, with Esperanza sharing memories of watching Real Madrid matches on small television screens in neighborhood bars during the 1960s, of saving money to buy her first television so she could watch games at home, and of teaching Carlos to appreciate the beautiful game during the years she raised him alone. Her voice grew stronger as she spoke about football, and her eyes brightened with memories of goals she had celebrated and victories she had witnessed. Ronaldo listened intently to every story, asking questions about players from previous eras, sharing behind-the-scenes anecdotes from his own career, and treating Esperanza not as a dying fan seeking a final wish, but as a fellow football enthusiast whose insights and passion were valuable in their own right. When Esperanza mentioned that she had never been able to attend a match at the Santiago Bernabeu because tickets were too expensive and the journey from Carmona was too difficult for someone her age, Ronaldo made an immediate decision. "Esperanza," he said, "I know that traveling to Madrid would be difficult for you now, but would you like me to bring the Santiago Bernabeu to you? I mean that literally. I want to arrange for you to watch our next home match with a direct video connection to the stadium, with commentary from the players' bench, so you can experience the match as if you were sitting right next to me during the game." The idea was ambitious and technically complex, but Ronaldo's team made it happen within a week. They installed professional video equipment in Esperanza's bedroom, creating a direct link to cameras positioned on the Real Madrid bench that would allow her to watch the match from the player's perspective. They arranged for Ronaldo to wear a small microphone during warm-ups so he could speak directly to her before the game began, and they coordinated with the television broadcast team to provide her with commentary and behind-the-scenes access that no other fan had ever experienced. On the night of the match, Esperanza was propped up in her bed, wearing the signed Real Madrid jersey that Ronaldo had brought her, and surrounded by flowers and cards from neighbors who had learned about her story. Carlos sat beside her, holding her hand, as they watched the pre-match preparations through their unique video connection. When Ronaldo appeared on their screen during warm-ups, he looked directly into the camera and spoke to Esperanza as if she were sitting in the front row. "Esperanza," he said, his voice coming through clearly in their small bedroom, "this match is for you. Every goal we score tonight, every beautiful play we make, every moment of joy we create on this field. We're sharing it with you because you've shared your love of football with us for so many years. You're not watching this match, you're part of it." The match itself was magical, with Real Madrid playing some of their most inspired football of the season. Every time they scored, Ronaldo would point toward the camera that connected him to Esperanza, dedicating each goal to the grandmother who was watching from her bed in Carmona. When the final whistle blew and Real Madrid had won 4-1, Ronaldo again spoke directly to the camera, holding up the match ball and promising to bring it to Esperanza personally. But the most meaningful moment came after the match, when the video connection remained active and Esperanza was able to speak directly to Ronaldo through the system they had installed. "Mijo," she said, her voice weak but filled with emotion, "you have given an old woman the most beautiful gift anyone could receive. I feel like I was there with you, like I was part of something magnificent. Thank you for showing me that dreams can come true even when life is ending. Ronaldo's response was immediate and heartfelt. Esperanza, you've given me something much more valuable than what I've given you. You've reminded me why I play football, why I love this sport, and why the connection between players and fans is the most important thing in the world. You've made me a better player and a better person. Esperanza lived for 6 more weeks after that match, and Ronaldo maintained regular contact with her throughout that time, calling her before important games, sending her signed memorabilia, and arranging for other players to record personal messages for her. When she finally passed away peacefully in her sleep, surrounded by Carlos and the neighbors who had become her extended family, her last words were about the joy that football had brought to her life and her gratitude for the kindness that Ronaldo had shown her. Ronaldo attended Esperanza's funeral, arriving quietly and without fanfare to pay his respects to a woman who had taught him important lessons about passion, gratitude, and the power of sport to create connections between people from vastly different circumstances. He spoke briefly at the service, sharing memories of their conversations and explaining how much her love of football had meant to him personally. In the months that followed, Ronaldo established a foundation in Esperanza's memory that provided support for elderly fans who wanted to attend football matches but lacked the resources or physical ability to do so. The foundation arranged transportation, accessible seating, and medical support that allowed hundreds of older fans to experience live football in ways they had never thought possible. Carlos, who inherited Esperanza's small apartment and her fierce independence, used the scholarship that Ronaldo provided to study sports journalism, eventually becoming a writer who specialized in stories about the human connections that make football more than just a game. His first published article was about his grandmother's final weeks and the footballer who had cared enough to share those precious moments with a dying fan. Years later, when Ronaldo looked back on his career and tried to identify the experiences that had shaped him most profoundly, he would always mention the afternoons he spent talking with Esperanza about football, life, and the importance of finding joy even in difficult circumstances. She had taught him that fame and success were meaningful only when they were used to create happiness for others, and that the most important victories often happened not in stadiums, but in small bedrooms, where dying grandmothers were reminded that their lives had mattered to someone in the world.